I think if you belabor it and you like really stay on it and you can like overdo it to where people are going to want to roll their eyes. But I think if you do it very tactfully and almost slick, it's like you can get some running technique and the combo started with only
Mhm.
like a few minutes and not like overdoing it. That's what I've found. I've taught it twice at Sola, and you can tell none of them were ready for it. They were like, "What the fuck are we doing?" One of the days was literally an run only day. It was like this longer run into these intervals. And everyone like did respond kind of weird. And then toward the end, they were like, I run really bad. Like they all kind of had that realization. So all right, let's talk through just positional stuff. Those two videos I found, that guy is the original pose method creator. He's the one that came up with it. So I thought it was cool. I was able to come across those. I figured let's use him rather than anybody else. Let's just talk about position and where we want to strike, what we want to do with our body, those kinds of things. And then I would rather spend more time on drills and ideas to implement it in class, and then go from there. So, position wise, if you're looking at someone's foot landing, what are we looking to see? There's really like two pretty good answers here. What do you guys
That
got?
they have that they strike with a flat foot or like, you know, front foot to back foot, like
Yeah,
the
so like
ball
either
foot, and they kiss the floor with the heel.
yeah, either one of those would be okay. Either landing ball of foot, like just behind the toes, and then the foot relaxes, or they just land flat foot. In my journey of going down running technique, I learned really quickly that some athletes do very well if you like cue them ball of foot, and they land, they relax, and all is well. And then you get some people that will land good and they'll land ball of foot, but they never relax, and the heel stays up the whole time, and then they're just like, Coach, my calves are gonna fucking explode. And they blow their calves up because it's just under tension the entire time. That's what I look out for, and depending on what I'm going to tell them for those two versions. There is a ton of running coaches that say landing flat is totally fine. It's kind of one of those like stylistic things of that world. Um, but I'm like, if it's going to be a stylistic and the person isn't blowing their calves up and they're striking underneath them, that's really the most important part, then I'm happy, right? I don't need the perfect ball of foot land to uh, to back foot or to heel relaxing kissing the foot. I fucked up and gave you guys the next answer. I was gonna say, where do we want to see that strike? It's underneath our body, right? We don't want to see the foot extending or reaching in front of us at all. When the foot gets in front of the body, then we know there's going to be some kind of heel strike and heel contact going on. So directly under the body, that's how I start people off when we're like teaching them. Just if you do bunny hops in place, that's running. We're just doing it with 2 feet, and we got to learn how to do it with 1 foot. So simply put, you got a running workout. You're doing your little back and forth line drills, butt kickers and high knees and all that good stuff. Put a bunny hop in there and have them just focus on the way that feels and be like, guys, you're running. We're just gonna learn how to do that on a leg and fall. Beyond that, what's happening with the body? So that leg all the way up, what do we want happening? This is a hard question. I'm not expecting you guys to really get it. So above the ankle up, what's going on? We got some tension, right? Even though we don't think of running as the core needs to turn on, we do need core tension in that. That's a tough one to get people um,
Mhm.
thinking about when they run, because then like think about making your belly tight and running, you get all stiff and it gets really weird. It's a very light engagement when we do talk about it. They say it's about 30% when you're running. Have you guys ever done like 10 100 meter sprints and your abdomen and your intercostals get sore? That ever happened to any of y'all? It's the
I've done it.
weirdest feeling to get your abs sore from sprinting. I think part of that is just hyperventilating and like flexion going in and out gets it sore, but then the other part is you can't sprint soft. You have to be rigid when we're sprinting. So it's just a good example of feeling core tension when you do go for a run. The reason I bring that up, let's see if you guys can get this. When I'm moving and I'm now covering distance and I'm traveling, how am I traveling? What's the mechanism of how I'm going from left to right and moving down the sidewalk? Is a hard question.
You're leaning forward? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah. Yes and no. I would give you, if I was a teacher and that was a final exam, I would give you half credit, and I'll explain why. You're on the right track. You're falling forward, right? I'm going to be very specific, leaning to falling, because if I lean, I think people are going to tend to want to bend at the hip more, and they don't actually fall forward. So their torso is kind of like, if this is their hip, they have that going on. And then what are they going to feel if they go for a 5K run like that? That's your member that comes back and is like, my back's all blown up, right? They're just under tension the whole time. The spinal erectors are supporting them while they're trying to run. Watch people's hip. You see there's a shitload of people that do that unintentionally. They have no idea they're doing it. So fall forward. What moves us if we're falling? Gravity, right? A good run is just simply your foot is striking the ground so you don't completely face plant, and that's what's moving us across. So when we go from that bunny hop, if I bunny hop, right, and I land ball of foot and my heel relaxes, just like I'm doing double unders, and I just start to lean at the ankles, there he is. You missed all the running technique part. That's cool. Let's let Cayman get on here and then we'll keep going.
So the bunny hop is basically like you do it to train that foot below your body.
Okay. Foot below the body and the strike. So like a bunny hop's going to be, it's going to be really easy for me to feel ball of foot and heel relax. And it's under the body. It's a lot easier, like coordination wise, to get that done rather than me just going immediately to a single leg. So bunny hop in place, right? And then I tell them squeeze your butt really hard and start to fall forward. I tell them squeeze your butt because you can't bend the hip if your butt's squeezed. So if they can bunny hop, they can lean forward while squeezing their butt. They're running, right? We're just running on 2 feet rather than 1 foot like we want. You want me to do that outside of Starbucks right now? I will show you guys, but there's no chance I'm doing that shit right here. But honestly, in Austin, no one will bat an eye. I'll probably look like a normal person. Shit's real here. I will take some demo videos and send them in the group later, I promise. Nice try though. So make sure you have your members put their hands like this when they do it. So have them bunny hop, feel that position, right? If someone's really struggling with the fall, you can just have them go to a wall and they fall like into the wall and just push themselves off. That way they can like over exaggerate the fall without falling on their face, basically. From there, what's step 2, right? We don't run with 2 feet. Go to 1 foot. Right? When I go to 1 foot, just simply run in place, right? If someone's running in place, they're not reaching their leg in front of them. They're not moving to where their leg is ending up behind them and they have to pull it forward. They're literally just picking up the feet straight up. I can't do that fast with my fingers. It's very hard. There we go. There, it's gone. They're literally just picking up their feet straight up and down, right? That is our perfect run. That is pose method. We just got to get that right with falling right. And boom, there we go. So I always go bunny hop. Someone struggling, go to the wall and feel a couple of those falls. Back to bunny hop, fall, and they'll kind of like travel across the room if they do it well. And then go single leg, just feel the foot strike, feel what it feels like to pull the heel right under the butt. That's how I cue it. I'm like, pull your foot right under the butt, because otherwise you end up with a high knee or you end up with a butt kick. Those are both bad. And then from there, start to fall with that. Have you guys ever seen it on a jump rope? Jump rope's a really good drill too. So single unders and just alternating the feet, single unders, you're running. And if you can get the timing right, you can lean forward and you can literally run while doing single unders like that on the jump rope. And what I have people do is they establish their pattern. Now I'm like lean, they start moving. As they start moving, I'm like drop the rope and just keep going. And it really helps them learn how to fall and strike as well. A really good way to engage class is do that, because now you have the person, like Holly said, she was going to teach it and someone rolled their eyes at her and you go, here's a jump rope, badass. Why don't you show me how it's done? And now it gives them this like skill that they have to kind of think more of, but you're baiting them into doing what you want them to do. And that's running technique. That's my favorite one. Cause then people go, how'd you do that? And they all fail and they trip it up and it kind of like gets them engaged and just kind of excited again about it. I'll take a video of all these things when I'm back at the gym later. All right. Any questions so far on any of that? Awesome. When it comes to the fall, this is a fault you're going to see. And have you guys ever seen the drill where you have two partners holding, make sure they hold shoulders, that no one gets weird and like hold the chest where they're not supposed to hold the chest. So they have the hands on the shoulders, right? And the partner's like off to the side and the partner leans into the hands. And then all of a sudden they go 2, 1, and they just let them go, right? That's a great drill to learn the fall as well. The problem with that drill is most people lean hard as fuck in a lot. So they're leaning like 15 or 20 degrees. So when the partner pulls the hands, they actually end up having to kind of like pull back because they're not going to go into a Usain Bolt sprint. And they have to like adjust their speed so they don't face plant. So if you ever do that drill to where it's the lean, what I have people do is put the hands, they're just standing normal. And the lean is so slight that you can't even tell people are leaning forward into the hands. Just the partner can feel a little bit of body weight. That's all we need for that. Because otherwise they end up developing that hip hinge lean. And then running technique actually gets worse because the drill is too extreme. Following me there? Staying on the lean topic. A 5-degree lean, which is like what I just did with my hand, is not 5 degrees, probably like that. It looks vertical, is they say a 5-minute mile, just above a 5-minute mile. So the degree of your leaning is not a lot. It's very slight and you can be hauling ass. So when you teach that, tell people you don't have to fall into the wall like our drill, but just very, very slightly. And if you can kind of squeeze your butt cheeks as you're going a little bit and kind of check yourself here and there, that's just a good little here and there, bring yourself back in. Questions, thoughts on technique itself? All right.
What about your arms?
Arms, they say for not a sprint, but like if you were going to just go on a 5K, imagine that you have three like quarters, right? One's on your thumb, one's in the middle like a sandwich, and the other one. Your arms, your rhythm, that middle quarter would never fall out. You do want elbows to be moving. So I teach, if it's a sprint, I used to say ear to pocket. So hands all the way up at the ear, hand ends up all the way at the pocket. So we actually have movement, because a lot of people run and they do this. Right. And they're moving their arms, but they're moving their elbows, but they're not moving their arms. Right. The speed of that is going to be how much this grows, but we should have a little bit moving. Really good question. Cause now you're bringing up more shit. It's straight up, straight down movement. And we're solid in here. We're not side to side movement and we're twisting. This happens a lot with people as well. We've got to look for that twisting. That is a zero core engagement situation that's happening. And then a lot of times with those people, they're the ones that are like, my hip hurts, my knee hurts. All these things start to kind of blow up. So up and down, the speed's going to dictate the degree, but we're still solid, no twisting happening in here. Go ahead, Damon.
Something that I noticed when we're running, whatever, 5Ks, 10Ks, towards the end, people get really sloppy with their posture. Their chest starts to drop. They're looking down instead of the horizon. They get the swoop in the neck. And what I tell a lot of the clients is like, It's a tiny hammer. You're running 5 miles, 3 miles. That's a tiny hammer hitting the back of your neck or hitting your chest down, right? All that impact each
It
time you
is.
step. And sure, you can do a deadlift with improper form a few times and you're fine. But you do 100 of them, you're hurt. You get sloppier.
Well, here's just something to think of too. My time in Austin, I've met two gentlemen that are both one of them still active military, but the other one is not in the military anymore. They both did a lot of rucking, so a lot of runs with a pack. Both of their backs are fucking destroyed, like to the point where both of them actually have stopped CrossFit. They're both seeing PTs. And then one of them's could be a games level athlete, but his back is, I mean, all of his L's are like non-existent. So it goes to show that there is a lot of impact happening. They're just a good example because they had that rucksack on. So theirs wasn't a tiny hammer. Theirs was a hammer at that point, right? And it just destroyed their joints. And I would go to guess they're heel striking everything. On top of it, they have military issued boots. They're not running in Nike Pegasus, so that it's just fucking hard landings every time. So it's just we get this degree of extreme with them that we can see what it does to a body over time to run poorly, right? And what's our game? Our game is not about being fit tomorrow or next month. Our game is being fit for our entire life with functionality. Running is just very overlooked. Running has a substantially higher injury rate than CrossFit. Like toward the top, like top 5 vibe injury rate when it comes to like hospital visits. And that's a hospital visit. That's not people not going to the hospital. Where was my thought? Any other questions or statements before I go into the next piece? So we got our mechanics down, right? We're gonna work on that. We're gonna train clients in that. Staying healthy, I mean, I guess this is right on topic. Staying healthy is gonna be a major point. So I cannot take somebody, let's just talk running in general. I cannot take somebody that's not been running and be like, let's go time trial a 5K. They're gonna get through it. It's gonna be real shitty. They're probably gonna be pretty achy and things are gonna not feel great from like a soreness level tomorrow. But I cannot take that volume and go from 0 to over and over and over. Something's going to give. A calf, a shin, an ankle, a knee, a hip, and that's regardless of technique, right? It's just like anything. I'm not going to take my day one client that walked in on a free trial that needs to lose weight and be like, hey, dude, we have Karen today. And I'm telling class, you're going to do it in 3 sets. Like that, y'all know how that's going to go. That shit ain't going to work real well. Right? I've got to give him a scaled version of Karen. Running's no different. So running volume is a topic that I have seen running coaches that are qualified destroy somebody on. And then they don't end up making their race of why they even hired the running coach in the first place, just because of a volume increase was way too fast. And they end up having these little naggy injuries that pop up. Running, it's a 10% rule. I know it sounds really crazy to say if someone hasn't been running at all, you're just going to do 10% of a mile. What are they going to run? A 200? Like, obviously, that's not enough. But pick a number that you feel and the athlete feels good about, hit that number, and then slowly start to grow it there. Every time you hit a new workout, I don't even do new workouts. I do like every week or even every other week, we add 10% volume. So good example is a mile. Right? 1,600 meters. If I did the math on that, when I give you more, it's going to be like 1,800, right? It's not a huge hike up. That's how we keep people healthy. The frustrating thing as a coach, in my opinion, and I'm sure you guys have heard this in your gyms too, is they go, hey, coach, I have a half marathon. Cool. When? In 3 weeks. Good luck. Like I can't really do anything for you there. Like I can write you a program, but we have to go 0 to 100 and might not go well for what I'm talking about. So sometimes we're not given proper times to actually do these things proper. And I think that's why a lot of people do run into trouble on it. It's because they go, oh, shit, I'm racing a clocks and I have a high rocks in a month and I haven't done any running. I've just been doing CrossFit. And now we have to go from, 400 meters in our typical CrossFit workout to 8,000 meters in a high rocks. And like, that's gonna be a problem. So educating people that like you do need to train these things with a decent amount of time to do it properly so you stay healthy is a really important topic. On that same front, it's not just a general volume thing. If you're taking somebody that was a heel striker and we're teaching them now how to do a pose method, one, we're going to have to just fine tooth comb that shit, right? Over and over and over, just like their snatch. Few, we got that better, we go on to the next thing. So that process is going to take place and happen. You're not going to send them out on their mile run trying to pose method for the first time for the whole mile. You're going to tell them, hey, you're going to run a mile. You're going to think about running technique for the first 100 meters and then just fucking forget about it, right? Because you will also injure somebody trying to suddenly change the way they run for too much as well. So it's like literally get your running in place drill, take 100 steps, maybe not even that much, and walk it back. And then you're going to grow that the same way using that 10% rule. So over time, we have now built into our mile run with good technique, our 5K with good technique. It's a slow building process, right? If I put this into weightlifting terms, and you're going to try to win your weight class in your state for states, and Cayman goes, yeah, for my weight class, the guy who won last year snatched 235. I'm not going to be like, all right, week 1, we're going to do 135. Week 2, we're going to do 155. Week 3, we're going to do 185. Week 4, we're going to do 205. That ain't going to go well. He's going to miss all of those, and it's going to be a dumpster fire, and they're going to get uglier and uglier and uglier, and then maybe get hurt. We have to look at running the same way, right? We got to get really good at 135, very consistent at 135, then move the needle. Does that make sense to you guys? Running just doesn't have, for some reason, the same respect as weightlifting because it's not a big, scary, heavy barbell for your spine anymore. So people kind of just disregard how it can break down somebody's body. Thoughts or questions on that? Was that a hand raise or a hell yeah?
Yeah.
Hand raise.
Well, both. So yeah, talking about how much effort and research we put into proper mechanics for lifting, let's say squats, for example. I've been regressing and focusing on my tripod and my foot and slamming that big toe down to maintain the arch and building it from foundation up. So I don't know. I guess my question is that similar to running with the foot strike? We talk about a forefoot or a forward foot strike instead of heel to toe. Is there what's the mental focus when you are hitting with your feet? Are you trying to spread your toes out wider? Are you trying to just catch that sole of the foot and roll it out? You know, I don't know.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know anything about like what your toes are doing, but what I will say is I don't know many running shoes that would even allow you to think about something like that. So I think literally just how are you striking the ground can be a start. Like, so just that. And then, you know, you're probably going to selectively ignore, are you falling right? And then once your foot strike is good, then let's look at, am I hinging to fall or am I actually falling? Like I would do it the same way, like we would do, you know, a barbell. Like, hey, on my new guy, I just want you to flatten your back, pull your chest up as hard as you can. And then as clean's like, duh, right? And you're like, cool, your back was flat. All I care about right now. Because if I put another info in his head, I'm probably going to lose the part I'm working on. So just, yeah, take it one thing at a time. For most things we do, take it one thing at a time. Focus on one thing, lock in on it, and ignore other things.
And I agree. If you splitting hairs, like that's so detailed, but I do have some clients that do marathons, and I've been trying to like, all right, well, let's reduce running and focus more on strength and just, you know, building back the basics. So they ask a lot of questions, but it's definitely.
And I would say for that client, I might put my foot in my mouth on this a little bit. If you're running a marathon, you're certainly more advanced than most people when it comes to running, right? That's not to say that you have good running technique. You could just have the carbon fiber plated shoes and you're like, fuck yeah, I feel real springy, right? Shoe marketing is a very real thing. Like that's why we pretty much started foot striking, right? If I wear no shoes and I went for a run, you think I'm going to dig my heel into the ground? Hell no, that's going to hurt. It's going to hurt my hip like I did in flag football. you're going to run the way your body was designed to run. But now all of a sudden we give a Nike shoe that has this swoop, right? And it's this nice Pegasus. And you go, oh, look, I can put my heel down and it rolls perfectly to my toe. It like literally tricked us to run bad. So like with that marathon person, I would say that is a person you can get more nuancy with because we're so much more advanced on the volume train that you can probably push the needle on like the mechanic train for them versus if you take me, this is sad to say, I only run if there's a fucking running in the Metcon. Like there's some weird shit happening if I'm going to run my own intervals. Like I'm signed up for Wadapalooza or something. You know what I mean? So like if you take somebody like me, it's got to be this very methodical build up basically is what I would say. So like that person is like my Olympic weightlifter. I'm gonna be more technical and maybe a little more jargony and a little more majoring in the minors for my weightlifter than my free trial guy. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That was a good question. All right. So we've got mechanics, we've got volume control, we've got volume control when it comes to building mechanics. Let's talk about let's talk about sprinting because I know that was a thing you brought up, Cayman. And then we'll talk about like building a program. Sprinting. A lot of people think sprinters reach their foot out, grab the ground, and like hamstring curl. Sprinting, I put a slow-mo video in the app so you can watch. I think it's Usain Bolt. You can watch a sprinter actually go. He's real speed and then it slows it down. Watch their foot strike. It doesn't change. They're just going so fast that my fall for my mile is that, and that sprinter's fall is that. So that's where you see, I know you can picture it in your head, where it's like that straight line and that leg's way behind them. That leg doesn't pull to in front. That leg only pulls to support and then ends up behind them because they're moving so fucking fast. The difference, I would say, in me running a 5K in my pull versus that sprinter in their pull, because I'm running at a rate that my degree of fall is so small, I'm pulling a lot hamstring. So that hamstring is pulling that foot directly up, directly down, versus that sprinter's going so fast that the foot can't just go up and down. It has to catch up some. So they use a lot more hip flexor and quad in sprinting than we would in like, I mean, maybe you're running a really fast 5K. Then we'll say Nate's 5K. That's a safe one right there. Not very fast. Does that make sense, Cayman? I know you were asking specifically about sprints. Yeah, and some people think though because it's fast they actually grab and go. Just watch a slow mo. It's actually really fucking cool.
I did a run this weekend and I was the rib run, so there was like competitive athletes there, and we're running, and on the way back, like the ones who were competing for the money, they were like 6'1", like skinny as a rail, but it looked to me like their stride is like they're pulling. It looked like it. I mean, they're running 5-minute miles, but
I don't know how the hell they. Like I would have to on someone that fast. Like I don't think my running coaching eye is good enough to see it. I have to see a slow-mo. But when I was pulling this up on YouTube, I looked at several sprinters. There was one with Noah Lyles. There was a couple dudes. I don't know who the fuck they were. There was a Usain Bolt. All of them strike underneath. So I'll say they're the best of the best. They're probably striking underneath. But like it does look like when it's real speed, it looks like they're reaching all the way. But it's so fast that it's kind of hard to see. It's like watching an Olympic weightlifter that is at the Pan America Games. Like they're so quick under the barbell. If you don't know what you're looking at and your eye is trained for that, you don't see shit. You're just like, wow, he got under somehow. And it doesn't even look like they extend their hips. It's so fast sometimes. Building a program. So we're CrossFitters. So I'm going to lay this out as a CrossFit coach and what our population is usually like the most likely scenario, and especially with High Rocks being on the up and coming. So if I've got Holly comes up to me, she goes, Nate, I'm going to do a half marathon. Cool, win. And she did her job, and she's like, not tomorrow, like in 8 months. I'm like, perfect, thank goodness, right? And we're going to build out her half marathon. She's a CrossFitter. She's coming to class regularly. So I know she's already training 5 days a week. How I'm going to build out that program is going to be a split. So I don't want her to just finish per half marathon. That's an accomplishment by itself. I want her to also do well and potentially improve times. If it's someone's first time ever, I would have a more focus on finishing, right? And not having to walk and shit like that. If it's someone that has done it multiple times, then I would start saying, okay, let's look at PRing your half marathon. Let's just not do this to do this. Let's get better at this. So in that block, for the early months leading up, I'm going to do two things, right? A half marathon is a distance race. That's 11 miles. It's far. I need to work distance. I'm going to dictate on what our starting distance is based on what that athlete has been doing. So if that athlete's like, hey, I want to run a half, I've been running, a 5K every week or every other week. I know 3 miles, 5,000 meters is a pretty safe start, right? So I can start there. I'm going to start to build out distance. So I'm going to build that 5K or that 3 mile into the 4th mile, into the 5th mile, and I'm going to just graduate that over time. If my race, not a marathon, but if my race is doable, my goal for that long distance build is to build further, right? I would say a half marathon's right on that edge of building further. And then anything more than that, we got to be real cautious with, because you don't want to wreck somebody sending them out on just like a stamina run. So I want to build that. So ideally, I want to build that half to maybe like 12 or 13 miles. If she's murdering it, maybe 14. Because what that's going to do, two things. One, physically, we know we've built that. Because we've built that physically, mentally now, there's no question of, is this distance going to fuck me up, right? You're like, I've done this. And hopefully multiple times. So a good example is 1,000-meter row. All of you guys know you're going to be able to row 1,000 without having to stop, right? And just that alone is going to help your 1,000-meter row. So I'm going to build distance. I'm going to use that 10% rule. I'm going to build that over time. My other day of the week, I'm going to build speed work. So this is my intervals that are happening. My speed work is how we are going to PR that half marathon if she's done it before. So that's gonna ideally track work, right? I like when my clients go to a track because we have exact distances. I know they're not gonna get hit by a car. Sounds dumb, but call me crazy. Shit happens. And I also know they're not gonna step in a hole like I did at a field playing flag football and hurt themselves. I know we've got a safe surface to run on. So track work, same thing. I know that athlete's been running for 5,000 meters. So in my intervals, I'm not just going to throw spaghetti at the wall and be like, 10 400s. I'm going to actually see where I land on that. So like 10 400s is a pretty good number because that's 4,000 meters. Right? So I can gauge my interval work on the distance they've run. We have to consider now that intervals are a lot more impactful. It's up to 13 times your body weight when you're sprinting versus like when you're just standing still and jogging. So I'm not going to build my interval work to 10,000 meters of interval stuff. Like that would be for a specialist. But I am going to use that number to make sure I don't go overboard. On the intervals, this is where pacing is going to be very, very important, right? I need to make sure that my pacing in my intervals is going to match a PR effort of whatever race it's going to be. So if it's for a half marathon, this sounds terrifying to me, but my intervals maybe 4 or 5 1,600 meters. So that's 4 or 5 miles with it. My mile pace in that is going to have to be quicker than what my mile pace was when I did my last marathon. And that's how I'm going to start to gauge those things. That being said, you can obviously do 2s, 3s, 4s, 800 meters. The longer the race is, I think the longer the interval should be for better success, because we got to get good at running that speed for a distance. So I don't want to be fast as fuck on 200s and then I just go run my distances and I never did anything in between. It's not going to translate as good. So you'll use your intervals, you'll use your race day race as gauges on what do we want to make those intervals. To start, I'll probably on a half marathon, I'll probably start with like 800s, right? That's not a far run for someone that's about to run a half. It's a run we can go quicker on. And then I would probably build those 800s out into 12,000s, 12s, so on and so forth, and just keep that train moving. You can also blend it. So it doesn't just have to be the same number. So maybe my interval day is 1,000 meter, a 400 meter, 1,000 meter, a 400 meter. And they have two different paces for those and they work on and off. Like you can get creative with that. And I think those help those intervals stay a little fresher in people's minds. Chris Hinshaw, I got you, Cam, in 1 second. Chris Hinshaw is a really good example of that. His program is like $20 a month. And you can see all the ways he programs interval work, and they're very creative. It'll be like 4-4-4 with like, whatever minute rest. And then after the third 4, it's like you get a 3-minute rest. So you're like, oh, all I got to do is make it through 3 of these, and then I get this big rest. But then you look at the whole program and you're doing 4 sets of that. So you're doing 12 400-meter runs, but the way he breaks them up can help you kind of play a game in your head. So get as creative as possible. Cayman, what were you going to say or ask?
What's your ratio of interval work to distance work for like a half marathon or a marathon?
If you're a CrossFitter, 2 to 3 days a week.
What ratio of how much interval work am I doing per week, or how much distance work am I doing?
I think it depends on what is your race. Like if your
half a
race
marathon or a
is
marathon.
if your race is long, I would go like 2 longs and then interval for a CrossFitter. Because if we don't make the distance, it doesn't matter how fast you are. Like I'm pretty damn good at sprinting. I can look like a champion on 200 or 400, and all fucking hell breaks loose after that, right? There's no more gas in the tank. So I've got to make sure I make it first. So I would have the priority on making it first, then the speed work. And then as that athlete advances, like you could potentially add like another speed day. But I would go like 2 to 1, like no more than 3 days a week. If someone's CrossFitting, 3 is like the borderline number of week. I've seen people be very successful on it. I've seen people get hurt on 3. 2 is my safe spot for a CrossFitter, right? And usually when it's solely a CrossFitter, we're just trying to do this race. And then my priority kind of goes back to CrossFitting anyway. And it's almost like it becomes a supplement to getting better at CrossFit. So 2 a week. And that's Chris Hinshaw's recommendation is 2 a week. And that's also what I've seen work the best when I've seen CrossFitters start to train for it. The 3s and the 4s, they get to like week 4 or 5 and they're fucking wrecked. Knees are hurting, ankles are hurting, they got shin splints, back's fucked up. Like shit starts to happen when that volume gets too much.
2 a week, 1 interval, 1 distance. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. And then one more scenario. So let's say I have a client who's done marathons or done long distance, and they have the mental, aptitude or the confidence to have that distance, but they want to increase their time. What I've advised was build strength. Because I don't know, I was told that transfers over. How much interval versus distance for someone who's done it before and has that capacity already?
They're pretty consistent on doing it before. This was like a one shot ever do it before.
Consistent.
I think they can increase the volume for sure. I'm guessing because they're consistent, they've kept longer runs going, right? Then I would go toward maybe 2 intervals a week. Don't be married to a number either. Like maybe week 1 is long interval. Week 2 is long interval. Week 3 is long interval. So like doesn't have to fit. I've learned this like years ago in my programming. I used to try to shove everything in a 7-day window. I think Justin tries to do that here. He showed us his template one time and everything's jammed in 7. Just because our work week is 7 doesn't mean we have to make our like training template 7. I think a 10-day cycle is the most beneficial for being able to get everything we want to get in without over cramming shit. Because once I start over cramming shit is when I start overtraining and then an injury happens. So like that can be a good way to look at it is it's not a 7-day rotation. It's a 10-day rotation or a 14-day rotation. And those like 2 weeks, you have your numbers that you're hitting and it's not like trying to shove in too much. On the flip side, you got somebody like that. Maybe they're not CrossFitting, 5 days a week. Maybe they're only CrossFitting 2 or 3. And, they're doing strength work 2 or 3 too. or something like that, then obviously they can run more because the volume on, like, we're just going to call it the lifting side. On the lifting side has dropped. Like, I'm speaking those numbers that they're showing up to CrossFit 5 days a week. So it's just, you can ebb and flow and balance the volume of all of that together too. Tempo work is really good, obviously, for strengthening, but especially with their tendons and everything's fast and it's always hitting, tempo is going to be good to keep them healthy. Tempo and pauses, because pauses are going to keep their joints opened up. It's going to keep their mobility good. So add some of that shit in too.
Cool. Thank you.
Explosive work like power cleans and stuff like that. Like, if they were running 100-meter sprints or track work, I'm like, hell yeah, real fast twitch fibers. But it's really not going to be, they're not running a fast twitch fiber race. It's still a slow twitch fiber race. Their fibers are just developed a little better. And their capacity of, I'm not going to get it right, I think it's fast twitch type B. I don't remember if it's A or B that regenerates. Like, they'll get better at that, but they don't need to be like an explosive specialist. I fucking hate running, but I hate it so much. I know a lot about programming on it. At least got to make it enjoyable. What else? Any other like programming related questions on how we would build that first base? Cool. Here's gonna be build on like your clients came in. So that's wave one. So if I was working with Holly and Holly's gonna run her hack, she's still doing CrossFit, and she's 8 months away, I'm probably gonna do that for like the first 5, right? Month 6, 7, 8 going into that race, then I'm gonna get sport specific. Now we're gonna start to drop the interval stuff, and we're gonna start to solely work on those long distances. I'm still gonna give her paces, right? I can work, if she's planning on running 11 miles, I can work, okay, today we're going to run 5, but here's your mile pace for the 5. So it's like she's still working speed, but we're putting the speed with the more important part, which is the distance. Versus if you had an athlete that was going to be, let's think of a good example of the opposite. I guess there's not many people running 400-meter relays at our age, is there? But if you're going to have somebody that's going to do a CrossFit comp, and we know the CrossFit comp has multiple 400-meter intervals, then I would start to drop down that distance stuff, and I would start to work intervals for the speed, because their race is speed. So it's like we're asking ourselves in that wave 2, what is the sport specific thing we need to work on? And then I will work on it. No different than CrossFit, right? We're about to hit December, January, and CrossFit Open. What do we know is coming in the CrossFit Open? Very basic, couplets and triplets. I need to have an engine for. I'm going to have something that's really fucking fast. I'm going to have something that's a 20-minute-ish AMRAP or workout. And then maybe I might have a heavy lift. So if I got 4 scores on the board, only one of them is going to be a strength component potentially. The other 3, what's more important is your engine and lactate threshold type work. So it's like, even in CrossFit, like, to side tangent this, you can build the same way, and our season does build out the same way if we're trying to do it competitively. Like, you have these different training blocks that we flow through. And then the peak of that, it's a pyramid. The peak of the pyramid is your race. That's your sport. So I came in.
I had another question, buddy. I'm sorry, guys.
Let them rip, man.
Is there a benefit for long distance training for cardio, for running, to do other cardio machines, skier, bike?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's a good way to dictate volume as well. The one and only time in my life that I did a full running program, we rode once a week. And I think it was a really good move by her. We had 3 days a week of running, and then she would get another week of only rowing. Biking could be the same. She was just trying to build our aerobic system more. And you can technically add intervals there too and build a lactate system, which is only going to help you. She was trying to build more of a aerobic system without the pounding of the pavement. In that program that we did, there was 8 of us. 3 made it through healthy, because all 8 of us were CrossFitting 5 days a week. All 8 of us were not about to scale all our workouts. We were all still going to RX it and go hard. Five of us hurt different things. I ended up getting really, really achy knees. And I like couldn't squat. Another dude pulled a groin. Like not major shit, but shit that like stopped you in your track if you were running interval work or doing squat cleans, stuff like that. So yeah, definitely mitigate and manage volume by putting somebody on a erg because you can still get engine working for sure. That's a good question. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, don't ever feel bad for questions. I like questions. I think questions make us all smarter too. Even if they seem dumb. I don't think there's a dumb one. All right. Any other thoughts? I've got one more thing to talk about. So Cayman already kind of brought this up, like with the strength work, right? Strength work, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but getting those people to squat, lunge, deadlift, don't neglect the upper body either, still give that some love. But moving those things, especially under tension, especially with pauses, can help people stay heavier. Can help people stay healthier as well. Looking at our feet, starting to learn on what a healthy foot is and what a healthy spring system is can be really important too. So a lot of people that think they have flat feet, they really don't. They just have weak feet and their arches are collapsed. Because their arches collapse, the foot internally rolls in. You can also see it in the ankle. The ankle doesn't run straight up and down. The ankle runs at like an angle. And it's not a flat foot issue. And then they're trying to just like duct tape that shit with some orthotics basically and fix it. And it's not an orthotic problem. Flat feet do exist, but in most cases, it's just a weak foot. So getting the arch strong, you can simply just have someone push their big toe in the ground. If you guys do that at your desk right now, you can feel your arch starts to flex and it kind of comes up, right? You can just do isometric holds there, right? Push your big toe in, give yourself a 10-second hold, relax it, and that can be a prescription for a client. How people stand is a big one. Notice in the gym when you guys go to the gym later, who stands toes straight and who stands like a duck. Everybody that stands like a duck's going to be internally rolled in, and you'll also see it in their squats because I know you're talking about your foot and working on that and what your tripod is, Cayman. So start to notice how you stand. I used to stand like a duck, and I learned if you just start to stand toes straight, it will start to address the problem. The first month of that was the weirdest fucking thing for me. My hips felt like they were stretching always when I was standing. Now I don't even think about it. Toes are straight. I think my feet are a lot more healthy than they used to be. They're not where they should be. But that by itself helped correct a lot of things. I went from like excruciating shin splints where it felt like I had nails all over my shins to I still blow up sometimes, but it's not like excruciating every time I run. Like I've got to kind of push some volume limits on that. So start to look at that, strengthen feet. I know you guys have probably seen on Instagram people picking like rags up with their toes, or they like pick up like a rock and they move a rock over. That's all foot strengthening cord work. Calf raises, right? We want to go straight leg calf raises. We want to go knees bent to calf raises. We want to get both of those in as well. Different angles of that ankle working. And then also don't forget the front side. So tibial stuff. Wall facing tibial raise is good. It lights you on fire if they're weak. You'll realize you had a muscle there that you didn't know you had. Or there is some stuff you can buy that attaches to your foot. You can do these like tibial raises with like a kettlebell hooked on. I think for most people, you don't have to go out and spend money and buy that stuff, but some people are really into it. You see a lot of that of Knees Over Toes page. He has all that stuff. And then the last thing, your hips. I think people neglect their hips. If your hips have issues, whatever issue your hip has is going to travel down the chain and get exacerbated. So a lot of knee issues is because of hips. A lot of shin and calf issues is because of hips and hamstrings. So making sure that all of those stay mobilized and all of those stay strengthening and firing, when we talk about the glutes and things like that, that's all going to be crucial to a healthy lower body chain to be able to continue not just running, but, look at CrossFit. We got dubs, we got box jumps, the ankle flexion and squats. Barbell work is, cleaning a snatch is simply a jump and land. So, they are working overdrive all the time, even though you don't feel them. So keep in mind that kind of stuff. None of it's fun to do. I will say that. It feels like homework for me every time I have to do it. But when I'm consistent on it, I feel substantially different than when I slack off on it.
Yeah. I wanted to add too with the flat foot, like having weak arches. So when I was researching, I was watching some video, I think it was like Squat University, which, you know, most of the stuff I like. But basically what he was saying is when you have weak arches, you get the flat foot, you get the pronation of the ankle, which falls in, and that internally rotates the tibia. So that's why a lot of people have knee problem when they're doing a lot of heavy squats, because you're jamming that
And they get
femur
real
into the
and they
tibia.
get real valgus knees too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been having knee problems, so I've been doing some of that stuff. And a client at the gym, same thing. And I've been putting us through a little, you know, exercise routine, and it's working. So
And it's like it's really hard to do. So I think that's something that like I try to relay to people. Like when you're trying to change position and do a correctional therapy, it's not easy. It's not easy because you have never worked that muscle or whatever it is usually, and especially through those ranges of motion. So sometimes layering that in for clients, I think, is a game changer when you're like, dude, I know we're just doing an air squat, but this is fucking hard, right? Like it requires work. I think when they go into it with that thought process, we get more success. So I like to kind of let people know that too, like, hey, and that's for anything. Like I changed somebody's row today, and I'm like, you feel awkward as fuck, don't you? And they were like, yeah, this is so weird. And I'm like, I know. That's why I'm telling you, because I know this good technique feels weird because you've never done it. You've done CrossFit for 8 years and you've rode like shit. So of course the new technique feels weird. So letting them know that that's okay, I think, can really be helpful. Use that tool. Off topic, same shit when it comes to a free trial coming in, right? If you tell that free trial and you stage it and you're like, hey, when you join, we have this basic program that we have people go through. It's a fundamental program. It teaches you all the basic stuff and we'll teach you methodology. We start you off with that, and then you hit class. They're staged. They're probably going to buy the program with no issue. Versus if we just go, hey man, how was class today? It was great. All right, man, see you tomorrow. And then all of a sudden, in the end of their trial, they're like, oh, and we have this additional program that is additional money. They're like, fuck that. Like that's not where their head was. Their head was, I'm just going to start class. So no matter what it is, whether it's sales or you're doing a correctional therapy or you're just changing a cue on somebody, sometimes staging that, hey, this is going to feel weird or this is what it's about to be like, helps people accept the fact, and it makes your job a lot easier. That's I think a big one across the board for anything. What does everybody think of when they're coming in the CrossFit for the first time? Oh shit, I'm about to do a hard workout. And it doesn't surprise them because they're thinking, oh shit, I'm about to do a hard workout. They're not thinking this is about to be easy, because then it would fuck them up. That was my thought. I was like, this is a joke. And then I died. It was bad, real bad time.
those are my favorite drop-ins, are the dudes that are, you know, commercial gyms that are just jacked and they come in with a big ego and they're like, all right, I'm going to smoke everyone here. And then the first 4 minutes, they're on the ground with their feet raised up, having a heart attack. Goodness.
My favorite is that guy that takes the 45s and loads it on the bar for set one. And I go, take it off. And you could tell no other man in their life has ever told them what to do. And I go, take it off. And I put my foot down. I have no issue with it. And then they do, and they have 75 pounds. And then that happens with the 75 pounds. I'm like, see, bitch, I told you. Nothing makes me happier.
Yeah.
I guess that's a good note to leave. Unless you guys have anything else that you want to add, running questions, stuff you've done. I'll make sure to film all my little demo things for running technique. I'll do a jump rope one too. But I think that's a good thing to leave it on. You are the boss of your class. You are the leader of your class. Don't be afraid to demand what you need to demand. Right? I had someone trying to get a bar muscle up the other day. It doesn't have strict pull-ups. And I'm like, dude, go get a fucking band out. Let's work on our strict pull-ups today. You're not doing these ugly ass kips. Like, you're the boss. You're the expert. Be the expert. Don't be afraid. Don't let your self-conscious stop you from doing what you know is right for them. No one will have a problem with it, I promise. If they do, they're an asshole. All right. We'll end it on that. I think that's a... Say that again? Running?
Wodapalooza's gonna have running.
Fuck yeah. I would
think it's
be...
No.
I think that shit's gonna be in the sand.
Yeah.
I can't make my mind up if I think it's gonna be like a straight 5K, or if it's gonna be some kind of like sand relay where we have something else like a sandbag. We're gonna run in the sand now for sure. So you guys that have beaches, I would start to go run on the beach too. I would blend. That's a good sport specific, good example. Hit some land runs. The other day, instead of speed work, go hit sand runs. Rest day, put a fucking backpack on, go ruck for an hour. Go walk for an hour in the sand. That's a sneaky hard workout, going to walk for an hour with a backpack on in the sand. Really, it's shitty.
How is the
Real
sand
shitty.
there in Miami? I don't remember.
Stop for
Like, is it like Daytona, which is like kind of hard? It's soft.
stop the shit.
And that sucks, man.
Yeah.
That's gonna blow my calves up like so bad.
Yeah, go like do that if you have access to it. I don't think we have any beaches like that here, so
Okay.
I'm fucked. If you can't get to the beach, I would start to do not a heavy backpack, but like a lighter backpack. I would start to do runs with that. So you're just loading up the calves and the feet a little bit more. I'd be very careful with volume, but do that if you're not able to get on the sand. At least, not that it's mimicking, but at least you're getting some extra in there rather than just running normal. That would be my plan B if you don't have access to a beach. All right.
Thank you.
Good luck on the sand run in a couple months. Let's say that like I'm not gonna have to do it. We'll all die together. All right, y'all. I will see you guys on Thursday. Cayman, I saw your bar muscle ups, by the way. I threw a note in there. But we'll also pull those up on the call. We'll put them on.
All right, I got to look at it. I haven't seen it yet. Thank you.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you guys later.